Officer James Donovan was known in the small town of Westfield as the cop nobody wanted to meet. He had a hard face with cold blue eyes that never smiled when he talked to certain people. For 15 years, he had worn his police uniform like armor, making him feel powerful. Many people in town feared him, especially those with dark skin. Donovan drove his police car slowly through the poorer parts of town. He liked to park near bus stops, stores, and places where black people often gathered. He would watch and wait, hoping to find any small reason to stop them, give them tickets, or even arrest them. Another day, another chance to clean up this town, Donovan said to himself as he started his morning patrol. What he really meant was making life hard for people he didn't like. Some of the other police officers knew what Donovan was doing. A few even joined him sometimes. Most just looked the other way. They didn't want trouble. Donovan had friends in high places. The police chief played golf with him every Sunday, and the mayor always invited him to town events. "Hey, Donovan, got any good catches yesterday?" asked Officer Pete Miller as they changed shifts. "Nothing special, just the usual troublemakers," Donovan answered with a smirk. "But today feels promising." What the town didn't know is that Donovan kept a private record. In a small notebook he carried, he wrote down names of black men who had disrespected him. This could mean they didn't say sir when talking to him, or maybe they looked him in the eyes too long, or sometimes just because he didn't like their face. The people on his list would eventually get special attention from him, the bad kind. On this particular morning, Donovan noticed a man sitting alone at a bus stop. The man wore clean but worn clothes and carried a backpack. He was reading a book while waiting for his bus. "Perfect," Donovan whispered to himself as he pulled his police car over. The man at the bus stop was Marcus Johnson. At 35 years old, Marcus had lived in Westfield his whole life. He worked hard as a janitor at the local community college, taking night classes when he could. Marcus dreamed of finishing his degree someday. He was quiet and kept to himself, never causing any trouble. Marcus didn't look up right away when Donovan's car stopped. He was used to police cars driving by. But when he heard the car door open and heavy footsteps coming toward him, he felt a knot form in his stomach. He knew about Officer Donovan. Everyone in his neighborhood did. "ID," Donovan demanded, standing over Marcus, blocking the morning sun. "Good morning, officer," Marcus said politely, reaching for his wallet. "Is something wrong?" "Just show me your ID and tell me what you're doing here," Donovan said sharply. "I'm waiting for the bus to go to work, like I do every day," Marcus explained, handing over his driver's license. Donovan looked at the ID for a long time. Then he looked at Marcus's book, a college textbook on American history. "Kind of fancy reading for a janitor," Donovan said with a small laugh. "I'm taking classes," Marcus said quietly. Something about Marcus's calm voice made Donovan angry. He didn't like when people like Marcus tried to better themselves. In Donovan's mind, they should stay in their place. "Stand up. Turn around," Donovan ordered suddenly. "Sir, why?" Marcus asked, confused. "Just do it. Now," Donovan's voice got louder. Marcus stood slowly. He knew not to argue with Donovan. Other people at the bus stop watched but said nothing. They were scared too. "I've had reports of drug selling at this bus stop," Donovan lied. "Turn around, hands against the wall." Marcus did as he was told. His heart beat fast as Donovan roughly searched him, emptied his backpack on the ground, and kicked his history book into a puddle. Finding nothing wrong, Donovan should have left. Instead, he said the words Marcus feared most. "You're coming with me." Marcus sat on the hard bench in the cold holding cell at the Westfield police station. His hands still hurt from the tight handcuffs Donovan had used. The charge was disturbing the peace, but Marcus knew he had done nothing wrong. He had just been sitting at the bus stop, reading his book, waiting to go to work. The cell was small with gray walls. It had one small window near the ceiling that let in a thin ray of light. The smell of bleach mixed with sweat filled the air. Two other men shared the cell with Marcus. They both looked tired and worried, just like him. "What did they get you for?" asked an older man with gray hair. "Nothing," Marcus said quietly. "I was just waiting for the bus to go to work." "Let me guess," the man said. "Officer Donovan." Marcus nodded. "That man has been terrorizing folks who look like us for years," the older man explained. "My nephew spent 3 months in jail last year because Donovan claimed he was speeding. Boy wasn't even driving that day." The third man in the cell laughed without humor. "Donovan stopped me last month for a broken taillight. My taillight wasn't broken when he pulled me over, but it sure was broken after he inspected my car." Marcus listened to their stories and felt his heart sink. He couldn't afford to lose his job at the college. He was supposed to be cleaning the science building right now. If he didn't show up, they might fire him. And he had a test in his history class tomorrow that he couldn't miss. The door to the cell area opened with a loud metal clang. Officer Donovan walked in with another officer. He looked at Marcus with cold eyes. "Johnson, you're up for processing," Donovan said, opening the cell door. "Let's go." Marcus stood up slowly. The other two men in the cell gave him looks of sympathy. They had been through this before. Donovan led Marcus to a small room with a metal table and chairs. On the table was a camera for taking mugshot photos. Next to it was a stack of papers. "Sit," Donovan ordered. Marcus sat down while the other officer stood by the door. Donovan pushed some papers toward Marcus. "Sign these," Donovan said, tossing a pen on the table. "What are they?" Marcus asked, picking up the first paper. "Admitting guilt to disturbing the peace and resisting arrest," Donovan said casually. "Sign them, and you can go home today with a fine. Don't sign, and you'll sit in jail until your court date, which might be weeks from now." Marcus felt trapped. He knew he wasn't guilty, but he couldn't afford to stay in jail and lose his job. "I wasn't resisting arrest," Marcus said softly. "And I wasn't disturbing any peace." Donovan's face turned hard. "You calling me a liar?" "No, sir," Marcus said quickly, "but I can't sign something that's not true." Donovan leaned close to Marcus's face. "Listen here. I've been watching you college boys thinking you're better than everyone else. You sign these papers, or I promise you'll regret it." Marcus's hands shook, but he put the pen down. "I'm sorry, but I can't sign this." Donovan's face turned red with anger. He grabbed the papers and crumpled them. "Fine. Have it your way. You'll appear before the judge tomorrow. Until then, you can enjoy our 5-star accommodations." As Donovan led Marcus back to the cell, he spoke in a low voice. "The judge tomorrow is old Judge Peterson. He and I go fishing together every month. Good luck explaining your side to him." Marcus returned to the cell feeling worse than before. The other men saw his face and knew what had happened. "Don't worry too much, son," the older man said. "Sometimes things have a way of working out." Marcus wasn't so sure. He closed his eyes and thought about his brother William, who had moved away years ago to become a lawyer. William had always protected Marcus when they were kids, but William wasn't here now. Marcus was on his own. Night fell over Westfield. The police station grew quiet as the day shift went home. Marcus still sat in the cold cell, wondering what would happen tomorrow. He had missed work and knew his boss must be angry. The two men who had shared the cell with him earlier were gone now. One had paid his bail, and the other had been moved to a different area. A new officer, much younger than Donovan, came to the cell. He had kind eyes and didn't wear the same mean face that Donovan did. "Johnson," the young officer called. "You get your phone call now." Marcus stood up quickly. He had been waiting for this chance all day. Officer Donovan had forgotten to give him his legal right to a phone call earlier. The young officer, whose name tag read Officer Rivera, led Marcus to a small room with a phone on the wall. "You have 5 minutes," Officer Rivera said, then stepped outside the door to give Marcus some privacy. Marcus's fingers shook as he dialed the only phone number he had memorized. his brother William's number. The phone rang 4 times before a deep voice answered. "Hello." William's voice sounded tired. "Will, it's Marcus," he said, his voice breaking a little. "I'm in trouble." "Marcus? What's wrong? Where are you calling from?" William sounded worried now. "I'm at the Westfield police station. An officer arrested me this morning for nothing. I was just sitting at the bus stop waiting to go to work," Marcus explained quickly, keeping his voice low. "Which officer?" William asked, his voice turning serious. "Donovan. Officer James Donovan." There was silence on the phone for a moment. Then William spoke in a calm voice that Marcus knew well. It was the voice William used when he was very angry but trying to hide it. "I know about Donovan," William said. "Tell me everything that happened." Marcus quickly told his brother about the arrest, the holding cell, and how Donovan tried to make him sign papers admitting guilt. "Are you hurt?" William asked. "No, just scared. I missed work today. I might lose my job. And Donovan says I'll see Judge Peterson tomorrow. He said they're friends," Marcus explained. William was quiet again. Then he said something that surprised Marcus. "Judge Peterson won't be there tomorrow," William said firmly. "How do you know?" Marcus asked. "Because I'm taking his place," William replied. "I wasn't going to tell you yet. I wanted it to be a surprise when I moved back to town next week." Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. "What do you mean?" "I've been appointed as the new judge for Westfield County," William explained. "Judge Peterson retired last month. Tomorrow is my first day. I was planning to call you after I got settled in." For the first time since his arrest, Marcus felt hope. His brother had always been smart. After leaving Westfield, William had worked hard, finished law school, and become a respected lawyer. Now he was coming back as a judge. "Don't tell anyone who I am," Marcus said quickly. "Not until tomorrow." "I won't," William promised. "Just hold on. Don't sign anything. Don't answer any more questions. I'll see you in court tomorrow, and we'll fix this." "Time's up," Officer Rivera said from the doorway. "I have to go," Marcus said. "Thank you, Will." As Officer Rivera led Marcus back to his cell, the young officer noticed that Marcus seemed different now. He stood taller and looked less afraid. "You okay?" Officer Rivera asked. "I will be," Marcus answered. "Tomorrow is going to be an interesting day." Back in his cell, Marcus lay on the hard bench and closed his eyes. For the first time, he felt sorry for Officer Donovan. The cop had no idea what was coming. Justice would finally have its day in Westfield, and it would start in that courtroom tomorrow morning. The next morning came quickly. Marcus barely slept on the hard bench in his cell. Officer Rivera brought him a small breakfast of toast and coffee, which Marcus ate slowly. His stomach felt tight with worry and hope mixed together. "Court starts at 9, Officer Rivera told him. "Someone will come get you soon." At 8:30, the cell door opened. Marcus expected to see the kind face of Officer Rivera. Instead, Officer Donovan stood there with a smug look on his face. "Rise and shine, college boy," Donovan said with a mean smile. "Time to meet the judge." Marcus stood up and let Donovan put handcuffs on him. The metal felt cold against his skin. Donovan made them extra tight, but Marcus didn't complain. He knew what was coming later. Donovan led Marcus down a long hallway toward the courtroom. "Judge Peterson and I had a nice talk about you this morning," Donovan lied. "He doesn't like people who think they're too good to follow the law." Marcus said nothing. He just walked quietly beside the officer. "That fancy haircut of yours won't help you in court," Donovan said, looking at Marcus's short afro. "Maybe you should have something more respectful for the judge." Marcus still didn't answer. This made Donovan angry. He was used to people being afraid of him, begging him for mercy. Marcus's quiet strength bothered him. They reached a small room next to the courtroom. 3 other people were there, waiting for their turn to see the judge. They all looked nervous. Marcus sat down on a bench against the wall. "Wait here," Donovan ordered. Then he disappeared through a door marked "Police Only." 5 minutes later, Donovan came back holding something in his hand. Marcus couldn't believe what he saw. Donovan was carrying electric hair clippers. "What are those for?" Marcus asked, speaking for the first time that morning. "Like I said, you need a more respectful look for the judge," Donovan answered with an ugly smile. "I'm going to help you make a good impression." The other people in the waiting room watched with wide eyes. One woman gasped. "You can't do that," Marcus said, his voice steady but firm. "Who's going to stop me?" Donovan challenged. "You're in my custody until you see the judge. I decide how you look when you go in there." Donovan moved closer, turning on the clippers. The buzzing sound filled the small room. "Hold still now," he said, "unless you want me to cut you by accident." Marcus knew he had two choices. He could fight back and probably get hurt, or he could let this happen and trust that justice would come later. He chose the second option. "Fine," Marcus said quietly. "Do what you need to do." Donovan looked surprised for a moment. He had expected Marcus to fight or beg. Instead, Marcus sat straight and looked him in the eye, showing no fear. "Your attitude needs work," Donovan said, pressing the clippers against Marcus's head. The buzzing sound grew louder as Donovan ran the clippers right down the middle of Marcus's head, leaving a bald stripe through his short afro. Hair fell onto Marcus's shoulders and the floor. The other people in the room watched in shocked silence. "There," Donovan said, stepping back to look at his work. "But it looks uneven now. Better finish the job." For the next 5 minutes, Donovan shaved Marcus's entire head, taking his time, enjoying the humiliation he was causing. When he finished, Marcus sat bald, with small cuts on his scalp where Donovan had been careless with the clippers. "Much better," Donovan said, putting the clippers away. "Now you look like you know your place." Just then, the courtroom door opened. The bailiff called out, "First case, the state versus Marcus Johnson. All parties please enter." Donovan smiled wide. "Show time," he said, pulling Marcus to his feet. "Let's go see my good friend Judge Peterson." The courtroom was bigger than Marcus expected. Wooden benches filled the room. Many people sat waiting for their cases to be called. Some were there with lawyers. Others were alone like Marcus. The walls were a light brown color, and a large American flag hung behind the judge's bench. Officer Donovan pushed Marcus forward to a table at the front. "Sit here," he ordered, still smiling. Marcus sat down, feeling the cold air on his freshly shaved head. He could feel people staring at him. Some looked at him with pity. Others whispered to each other. Marcus kept his head high despite feeling embarrassed. Donovan walked to the other table and sat down. He nodded to another man in a suit who must be the prosecutor. They talked quietly and laughed together, sometimes looking at Marcus. The bailiff, a tall man in uniform, stood at the front of the room. "All rise for the Honorable Judge William Roberts," he called out loudly. Everyone in the courtroom stood up. Donovan looked confused. "Wait, where's Judge Peterson?" he whispered to the prosecutor, who just shrugged. The door behind the judge's bench opened. A tall black man in black robes walked in. He had a serious face and carried a folder of papers. Officer Donovan's face turned white as he recognized the new judge. Judge William Roberts was Marcus's brother. Judge Roberts sat down and looked around the courtroom. "You may be seated," he said in a deep, strong voice. Everyone sat down except Officer Donovan, who seemed frozen in place. His mouth hung open in shock. "Officer Donovan, please take your seat," Judge Roberts said calmly. Donovan slowly sat down, his eyes wide with fear. He looked like he might be sick. Judge Roberts opened his folder and read for a moment. Then he looked up. His eyes found Marcus sitting at the defendant's table. When he saw his brother's shaved head, something flashed in his eyes. A quick look of anger that was gone as fast as it came. "First case, State versus Marcus Johnson," Judge Roberts announced. "Charges are disturbing the peace and resisting arrest." He looked at Marcus. "Mr. Johnson, do you have legal representation today?" Before Marcus could answer, the courtroom door opened. A woman in a blue suit walked quickly to the front. "Your Honor, I'm Sarah Chen from the Public Defender's Office," she said. "I'll be representing Mr. Johnson." Judge Roberts nodded. "Very well. Ms. Chen, have you had time to speak with your client?" "Not yet, Your Honor," she replied. "I was just assigned this case 10 minutes ago." "Then we'll give you time," Judge Roberts said. "But first," he looked at Marcus again, his eyes moving to his brother's shaved head. "Mr. Johnson, may I ask what happened to your hair?" The courtroom went very quiet. Everyone seemed to be holding their breath. Marcus looked straight at his brother, trying not to show that they knew each other. "Officer Donovan shaved it off this morning in the waiting room, Your Honor, against my will." Whispers filled the courtroom. Judge Roberts turned his gaze to Officer Donovan. "Is this true, officer?" Donovan's face was now red with fear. "Your Honor, I was just making sure the defendant looked presentable for court." "I see," Judge Roberts said, his voice cold as ice. "And do you make a habit of forcibly cutting the hair of people in your custody, Officer Donovan?" "No, Your Honor," Donovan said weakly. A woman in the back of the courtroom stood up. "That's not true," she called out. "He did the same thing to my son last year." The bailiff moved toward the woman, but Judge Roberts held up his hand. "Please let her speak." More people started talking. Another man stood up. "He cut my brother's hair too, saying it was too wild for court." Judge Roberts banged his gavel. "Order in the court," he said firmly. The room went quiet again. Judge Roberts looked at Officer Donovan with eyes that could have frozen fire. Officer Donovan approached the bench immediately. Officer Donovan walked slowly to the judge's bench. His legs felt weak, and sweat ran down his back. He had never been this scared before. The judge who was supposed to be his friend was not here. Instead, he faced a man who looked exactly like the person he had just humiliated. "Your Honor," Donovan said in a shaky voice. Judge Roberts leaned forward and spoke quietly so only Donovan could hear him. "Officer Donovan, I have 2 questions for you. First, do you recognize me from somewhere outside this courtroom?" Donovan swallowed hard. "No, Your Honor." "Good. Then let me ask you my second question. What gave you the right to shave my brother's head against his will?" Donovan's face turned white. "Your brother," he whispered. "Yes, officer. Marcus Johnson is my younger brother. But that doesn't matter right now. What matters is that you use your power as a police officer to humiliate and degrade a man in your custody," Judge Roberts said, his voice still quiet but filled with anger. Donovan tried to speak, but no words came out. "Return to your seat, officer," Judge Roberts ordered. "We'll continue this discussion shortly." Donovan walked back to his table on shaky legs. The prosecutor looked at him with concern, seeing how pale and scared he looked. Judge Roberts spoke to the whole courtroom now. "This court will take a 15-minute recess. Ms. Chen, please use this time to speak with your client. Officer Donovan, you will remain in the courtroom." He banged his gavel and stood up. "All rise." The bailiff called as Judge Roberts left through the door behind his bench. The public defender, Ms. Chen, moved quickly to Marcus's side. "Let's talk in the conference room," she said, helping him up. In a small room next to the courtroom, Ms. Chen looked at Marcus with kind eyes. "Are you okay? What happened to your head?" Marcus touched his shaved scalp. "Officer Donovan did it right before court. He said I needed to look more respectful for the judge." Ms. Chen wrote this down in her notebook. "And is Judge Roberts really your brother?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, but we haven't seen each other in years. He moved away to become a lawyer. I didn't know he was coming back as a judge until he told me on the phone last night." "This changes everything," Ms. Chen said. "Not only can we get your case dismissed, but we can file serious charges against Officer Donovan for civil rights violations." Back in the courtroom, Officer Donovan sat alone at his table. The prosecutor had stepped out to make a phone call. Donovan's mind raced as he tried to think of a way out of this situation. He had been cruel to Marcus Johnson, thinking there would be no consequences. Now he faced the anger of a judge who happened to be his victim's brother. Donovan thought about all the other black men he had treated badly over the years. How many of them had connections he didn't know about? How many times had he crossed a line, thinking he was protected? The courtroom door opened, and several new people walked in. One was the police chief, looking very serious. Another was a man in an expensive suit who Donovan recognized as the district attorney. They were talking quietly, but stopped when they saw Donovan. The bailiff called out, "All rise," as Judge Roberts returned to the bench. After everyone sat down, Judge Roberts spoke. "Before we continue with the case against Mr. Johnson, I need to address a serious matter that has come to light in this courtroom." He looked directly at Officer Donovan. "Officer James Donovan, this court has reason to believe you have violated the civil rights of the defendant, and possibly many others. Based on your actions and the testimony of citizens in this courtroom, I am ordering an immediate investigation into your conduct as a police officer." The police chief nodded from his seat, his face grim. "Furthermore," Judge Roberts continued, "I am recusing myself from this case, due to my family relationship with the defendant. However, the charges against Marcus Johnson are dismissed due to lack of evidence and clear misconduct by the arresting officer." He banged his gavel. "This case is dismissed. Officer Donovan, please surrender your badge and gun to the chief. You are suspended effective immediately pending investigation." Officer Donovan stood frozen in place. His hand shook as the police chief walked toward him with an outstretched hand, waiting for his badge and gun. The courtroom was completely silent. Everyone watched as Donovan slowly unpinned his badge and placed it in the chief's hand. Then he removed his gun from its holster and handed it over to. "Report to my office at 9 a.m. tomorrow," the police chief said firmly. "The internal affairs team will want to speak with you." Donovan nodded, unable to speak. His face was pale, and sweat soaked through his uniform shirt. The man who had been so powerful just an hour ago now looked small and scared. As Donovan walked out of the courtroom, people moved away from him. Some who had suffered from his actions in the past stared at him with hard eyes. Others whispered as he passed. The officer who had terrorized the black community of Westfield for 15 years was finally facing justice. Outside the courtroom, Marcus sat on a bench with Ms. Chen, the public defender. He touched his shaved head, still feeling strange without his hair. "Your brother did the right thing by recusing himself," Ms. Chen explained. "If he had stayed on your case, people might think he was showing favoritism." "I understand," Marcus said. "I'm just glad to be free." The courtroom door opened, and Judge William Roberts walked out, no longer wearing his black robe. He looked around until he saw Marcus, then walked quickly to his brother. "Marcus," William said, his voice filled with emotion. He pulled his younger brother into a tight hug. "I'm so sorry this happened to you." "It's not your fault," Marcus said, hugging him back. William pulled away and looked at his brother's shaved head. Anger flashed in his eyes. "What Donovan did to you was cruel and illegal. He will face serious consequences." Ms. Chen smiled at the brothers. "I'll leave you two to catch up," she said, picking up her briefcase. "Marcus, call me if you need anything else." After she left, William and Marcus walked slowly down the courthouse hallway. People nodded respectfully at the new judge as they passed. "How long are you staying in town?" Marcus asked. "I'm here for good," William answered. "I took this job because I heard stories about how the police treated our community. I wanted to make a difference." He touched Marcus's shoulder. "I never thought you would be one of Donovan's victims." "There are many others," Marcus said quietly. "You heard them in the courtroom." William nodded seriously. "And they will all get justice now. My first order as judge will be to review every case Donovan was involved in over the past 5 years." They reached the courthouse steps and stood in the warm sunlight. Marcus closed his eyes, enjoying the feeling of freedom. I missed my history test today, Marcus said suddenly. William laughed. I think your professor will understand when you explain why. And my job, Marcus added, worry in his voice. I need to call the college and explain. Don't worry about that, William said. I already called them this morning. Your job is safe. Marcus looked at his brother with surprise. You did that for me. Of course I did, William said. That's what brothers do. We look out for each other. As they walked down the courthouse steps together, a reporter approached them with a camera and notebook. Judge Roberts, can I ask you some questions about what happened in court today with Officer Donovan? The reporter asked. William looked at Marcus, silently asking if he was okay with this. Marcus nodded. Yes, William said to the reporter. It's time people knew the truth about what's been happening in Westfield. But first, let me introduce you to my brother, Marcus. The reporter looked surprised as she realized the connection between the new judge and the man with the shaved head who had been in court. She quickly started taking notes. This is going to be front-page news tomorrow, she said, her eyes wide. 1 week passed since that day in court. The story of Judge Roberts and his brother Marcus spread quickly through Westfield. The local newspaper put it on the front page with the headline, New Judge Confronts Police Misconduct on First Day. People everywhere talked about what had happened. Officer Donovan stayed at home, afraid to go outside. His neighbors, who once waved to him, now turned away when they saw him. His police friends stopped calling. He felt alone and scared for the first time in his life. At the police station, a team from the state police had arrived to investigate Donovan and other officers who might have done wrong things. They set up in a large room and brought in file boxes filled with arrest records from the past 5 years. There's a pattern here, said Agent Lisa Torres, the leader of the investigation team. She spread papers across a large table. Donovan arrested black men at 5 times the rate of other officers. And look at these charges: disturbing the peace, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, all things that are hard to prove or disprove. The police chief rubbed his tired eyes. I should have seen this sooner, he admitted. I knew Donovan was strict, but I never looked at the numbers. It's more than just numbers, Agent Torres said. We've interviewed 20 people so far who say Donovan mistreated them. 3 others, besides Marcus Johnson, say he forcibly cut their hair before court appearances. Meanwhile, Marcus returned to his job at the college. His hair was starting to grow back, but he still felt strange when he looked in the mirror. Students and teachers treated him differently now, some with respect, others with curiosity. Everyone had heard his story. One evening, as Marcus cleaned the science building, a student stopped him in the hallway. Are you Marcus Johnson? The young man asked. Marcus nodded, leaning on his mop. My brother was arrested by Officer Donovan last year, the student said. He spent 3 months in jail for something he didn't do. Your story gave my family courage to speak up. We're talking to Agent Torres tomorrow. I'm glad, Marcus said. Everyone deserves justice. Across town, in his new house, Judge William Roberts worked late into the night. His dining table was covered with case files, all the arrests made by Officer Donovan over the past 5 years. William had asked to review them personally, even though he couldn't be the judge for these cases. This one looks suspicious, William said to himself, making notes on a legal pad. Arrested for loitering outside his own apartment building. The phone rang, and William answered it. Judge Roberts, this is Agent Torres. I thought you'd want to know. We've identified 47 cases so far where Donovan falsified evidence or made arrests without proper cause. William sighed heavily. 47 lives affected by one man's racism. And that's just what we found in the first week, Agent Torres added. There will be more. After hanging up, William called Marcus. How are you doing? William asked when his brother answered. Better every day, Marcus replied. My boss gave me time off to take my history test tomorrow. And people keep stopping me to share their stories about Donovan. "The investigation is moving quickly," William said. "Agent Torres has found dozens of bad arrests already." "What will happen to Donovan?" Marcus asked. "He'll face criminal charges," William explained. "Abuse of power, falsifying police reports, civil rights violations, and assault for what he did to you and the others." "I don't hate him," Marcus said after a moment of silence. "I just want him to never hurt anyone else again." "That's why you're a better man than most," William said, pride in his voice. "But the law still needs to hold him accountable." As they talked, both brothers knew that what happened in that courtroom had started something important. It wasn't just about one officer or one wrongful arrest. It was about changing a system that had allowed such things to happen for years. 6 months had passed since that day in court when Officer Donovan shaved Marcus's head. Westfield had changed in many ways during that time. The police department had new rules. 5 officers who had worked with Donovan and done similar bad things were fired. The police chief had stepped down, admitting he should have stopped the problem sooner. Today was an important day. Officer James Donovan would finally face his punishment. The courthouse was packed with people. Many were those who had suffered from Donovan's actions over the years. Marcus sat in the front row next to his brother William. Since Judge William Roberts was related to one of the victims, another judge from a nearby county was handling the case. "All rise," called the bailiff as Judge Sandra Monroe entered the courtroom. Everyone stood up. Donovan was brought in wearing handcuffs. He looked much older now. His face was thin and his eyes were tired. He had spent the last 2 months in jail after more charges were added to his case. "Be seated," Judge Monroe said. The room grew quiet. Donovan had already been found guilty of 37 charges of civil rights violations, abuse of power, filing false police reports, and assault. Today was his sentencing day. "Before I announce the sentence," Judge Monroe said, "does anyone wish to speak?" Marcus stood up. "I would like to say something, Your Honor." Judge Monroe nodded. "Please approach the podium, Mr. Johnson." Marcus walked to the front of the courtroom. He looked directly at Donovan, who couldn't meet his eyes. "6 months ago, Officer Donovan arrested me for no reason," Marcus began in a clear voice. "He humiliated me by shaving my head against my will. He thought I was nobody, that I had no power and no voice." The courtroom was completely silent as everyone listened. What Officer Donovan didn't know was that my brother would be the judge that day. But the truth is, it shouldn't have taken a judge's brother being mistreated for justice to happen. Every person deserves to be treated with respect by those who wear a badge. Many people nodded in agreement. "I don't want revenge," Marcus continued. "I want change. The 47 people whose cases have been overturned because of this investigation deserve more than just an apology. They deserve a system that works fairly for everyone." Marcus turned to look at Donovan again. "I hope during your time in prison, you think about the lives you hurt. And I hope when you come out, you'll be a different man." As Marcus returned to his seat, a woman stood up and started clapping. Soon, everyone in the courtroom was applauding, except the judge, who banged her gavel for order. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson," Judge Monroe said when the room was quiet again. "Mr. Donovan, please rise for sentencing." Donovan stood up slowly, his legs shaking. "James Donovan, this court sentences you to 12 years in state prison for your crimes. You will never work in law enforcement again. You will also pay damages to each of your victims, as determined in the civil cases against you." The judge looked sternly at Donovan. "The badge you wore was meant to represent justice and protection for all citizens. Instead, you used it as a weapon against people based on the color of their skin. There is no place in our society for such behavior, especially from those sworn to uphold the law." After the sentencing, Marcus and William walked out of the courthouse together. News reporters waited outside with cameras and microphones. "Judge Roberts, Mr. Johnson, how do you feel about the sentence?" one reporter called out. William put his arm around his brother's shoulders. "Today, justice was served, but this is just the beginning. My brother's experience has shown us that the system needs to change, and we're committed to making that happen." Marcus nodded in agreement. "What happened to me was terrible, but something good has come from it. Now everyone can see that no one is above the law, not even those who enforce it." As they walked down the courthouse steps into the bright sunshine, many people reached out to shake their hands or pat them on the back. Marcus's hair had grown back now, and he stood tall and proud beside his brother. The two Johnson brothers had changed Westfield forever, starting from that one day in court when a racist cop froze at the sight of the new judge.